Members of the Resistance.
It's okay. Just me.
We promise nothing nefarious will befall you. We promise.
Dr. Nefarious. This is the part where you lose.
Ratchet, the Dimensionator.
Dr. Nefarious just crowned himself Emperor of this dimension.
We've got to get him and us out of here. But without the Dimensionator...
I think we have to build a new one. The boundaries between the universes are coming undone.
That's yo-ho, our time has finally come! It worked!
Wow, another Lombax.
Wait, I have to find my friend.
Where are you, Clank?
You okay, Bolts?
You came after me.
Pirate mateys, attack!
We didn't follow that Lombax and his robo-pen across dimensions just to get stopped by some fuzzballs!
Give it up for our hero!
Ratchet, we need your help. Nefarious
Oh! I have sprained my ankle!
How's it going, everybody, and welcome to the next review we have on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. This is one of my favorite games playing on the PS5 and one of the main reasons why I even got a PS5. It's been a long time until I was able to finally get this review done. Finally, I'm doing it now. So that being said, let's just get right into things. The last Ratchet and Clank title we got was from 2016, being the 2016 Ratchet and Clank game, which was a movie adaptation, which the whole thing was basically possibly a remake. And I say possibly because I can't tell from the amount of sites I'm looking at where if it's either a remake or a remaster. I am like super confused to the point where my brain is just fried at that point. But as far as like the movie and as more specifically the game goes, it was alright. I didn't feel like there was like a need for people to just be like returning to be playing the game. I didn't feel like there was much replay value, to just keep it very simple. It was a fun-ish game that you can just run for that one time, but after that one time, it just really didn't feel something special like that to where you could just keep replaying over and over again. And I'm someone that will replay campaigns over and over and over again. I just didn't feel it here. And as far as like the story goes, I didn't mind it. But you also got to keep in mind that I like Ratchet and Clank games, but at the same, and I'm a fan of the series, but at the same time, I'm still new to it because I've only played 2 games up until I got in Ratchet Clank Rift Apart. That being the 2016 game, obviously, and then Ratchet and Clank Size Matter. I've only been able to watch playthroughs, and I haven't really watched full playthroughs yet anyway. Hell, I haven't even watched really every one of the video games really. So I need to be playing these games via emulator. So my knowledge with Ratchet and Clank is very slim, so just keep that in mind. This game was also going to be exclusive on the PS5 and not being on the PS4. I thought that was a pretty good thing because it felt like if it was going to be on the PS4 and also be on the PS5, it was going to be held back on performance and other things as far as like gameplay goes, because when they're showing this game off, it's very clear that they're just showing off the power of the SSD, which rightfully so, because if you play games like Marvel Spider-Man and especially Spider-Man Miles Morales, that specifically, you see how transitions are where there's really little to no load times and it just transitions you back from cutscene to gameplay in like an instant really. And then when you have like this game where it's like multiple worlds, and with the SSD it has the powers to just load things super quickly at lightning speed, so that you can just go and transition from world to world without like load times or anything like that. It's pretty awesome. And with that being said, I had high expectations for this game, especially with the bad experience I have for video games, because let me just say this right now as like an off note, 2020, I'm not gonna lie, I needed something good. Call of Duty Vanguard, that sucked. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that sucked. SAO Alicization Licorice, that game sucked donkey dick. I just needed a really good game, and I was like praying and hoping that Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart was going to be that game where I was just going to be excited for. Trailers are coming out, super excited for Rift the Lombax. There was even a leak that kept me very interested, because I thought this was going to be a sequel to the 2016 Ratchet & Clank game, but actually no, it was going to be a sequel to what was considered the epilogue of the Future Saga, that being 2013's Into the Nexus. That was very interesting, because I didn't think that they would continue that story, because if they weren't going to do a sequel to the 2016 Ratchet & Clank, I figured they'll just probably just do like a whole new storyline as such for stuff afterwards, but no, we're having more of like a continuation on the Future Saga, so that was pretty interesting. And by the way, as far as like Rivet the Lombax go, I was super excited, and to show how excited I was for this character, on my drawing channel I did a video of drawing her, and if you also look on it on the channel itself, that's the channel logo for, or the channel mascot. But I did a drawing video before the game came out, and let me just say, that video is like none other. I was probably the most happiest ever drawing that from start to finish. I felt super confident. That is just a drawing that I will never ever forget. It is a one-of-a-kind drawing that I just enjoyed from start to finish. And with more trailers to come out over time, I got my PS5 somehow over that huge charade of just trying to get PS5s over time by looking on Twitter to see when will they be releasing. And then the game released on June 11, 2021. And I gotta say, ladies and gentlemen, this was a really fun game. I have a blast playing this game, and still do to this day. It is one of my favorite games on this console, and one of my favorite games ever, really. It's that much fun, that big of an improvement from the 2016 game that we've gotten, and there's just so much to just be talked about in that game. So that being said, I'm done talking about the overview for this. Let's get right into the story. A question someone may have is whether or not you need to play and or just watch the cutscenes from the Future Saga of the Ratchet Clank games, that being Tools of Destruction, Quest for Booty, A Crack in Time, and Into the Nexus. To me, you don't really need to after playing the game. I would at least suggest maybe just watching the cutscenes, otherwise not really, you don't have to. We start off in Nefarious City, where Rivet is on a mission to obtain an infobot for the Resistance Squad, along with saving one of the civilians from one of Nefarious's troops. Once the civilian is saved and Rivet is about to make her escape, she's surrounded supposedly. But then we switch back to Ratchet's point of view, where Ratchet and Clank are being celebrated during a celebration of heroes for the accomplishments for what the duo has pretty much done. However, as this celebration is happening, Dr. Nefarious attacks the celebration, because we find out soon after that Clank rebuilt the Dimensionator for Ratchet to find his family via alternate dimensions. The duo then finally takes down Nefarious, but in the process though, damaging the Dimensionator and then just being transported to various different pocket dimensions. And then finally, in the first world that we saw in the beginning of the story, the Dimensionator blows up, and then everybody is teleported into different sectors of this new parallel dimension. We see Clank waking up, not able to move, but able to meet the new dimensions Ratchet known as Rivet. We see Dr. Nefarious waking up at Emperor Nefarious's HQ, and then finally we see Ratchet in Nefarious's city, or at least somewhere in some sector in Nefarious's city, trying to just figure out what in the world is going on. As Ratchet is roaming around the city, we see Ratchet for a split second, but he's with the other Lombax leaving his planet. But since they now left the planet, we now need a ship. Problem is, we don't have a ship, so we need some help from a person named Phantom. With the help of Phantom, we get to Emperor's HQ, steal a ship, and then leave the planet we all started on. We then move to Sargasso and Rivet's point of view, where Nefarious's minions were looking for a Lombax probably Ratchet. Once everyone is saved, we go to Rivet's hideout so she can find out the truth about Clank's story and this other Lombax. By the way, do y'all remember that infobot that I talked about in the beginning of the story plot? Yeah, it's actually coming into fruition here because the Emperor's minions was actually able to track it down and mistakenly took it for Clank. But don't worry, because Rivet stops them and the two then become a new team in this dimension. We also find out that the infobot is having like a hit list for like the other resistance as well as Rivet. But we're gonna disregard that for now because we're gonna also help Clank right now by swinging over to Xerxes to fix his communicator so we can actually have some way to talk to Ratchet now that she actually believes him. Like good old games, we have like battle arenas, which is actually how we got the part from a pirate known as Pierre. We fix a communicator to talk to Ratchet. We come up with a plan to fix everything by rebuilding the Dimensionator. To do so, we need to do two things. We need to make and acquire phase quartz and then also make the actual Dimensionator. We can make the phase core from a planet called Blizzard Prime and build the machine to power the phase cores via the Dimensionator. We can make it from or get help from a prophet from Savali. At the same time, once we finally figured out this plan, one of Emperor Nefarious' spy bots or minions or whatever was eavesdropping and sent squads to both planets to stop the Lombax from building another Dimensionator. Switching to Ratchet's point of view, we go to Savali and meet Gary, who tells us that the person that can help us is his apprentice at the Interdimensional Archives. We find the apprentice, who is a Clank alternative war bot, which we later call Kit, which both of them team up to save the archives as well as to make sure the Dimensionator map is safe. But we also learn from the archives that in order to forge a new Dimensionator, we need to go to a place called Kadaro Station, which is obviously guarded by the Emperor's men. Thanks to the Blizzard Prime, however, though, we was actually able to power up the facility, and Ratchet and Kit are able to power and forge to make the Dimensionator. Now let's switch back to Rivet and Clank's point of view. We are going to head over to Blizzard Prime, which is now actually a destroyed world, but we just don't know what happened though. We do see this crystal called a Blizzard, which we actually was just messing around with Ratchet and Kit over at Kadaro Station. Hitting it once will send you into a different pocket dimension. Hitting it again will send you back to the reality that you was at before. We traveled to the crystal to the non-destroyed world and actually was able to create the new phase quartz at the new laser mining facility, which is actually how the new planet or the Blizzard Prime and Rivet's world was actually destroyed. During the process though of mining the phase quartz, the laser that was mining the phase core broke it. But we needed to do that in order to save Clank because it was either it's going to destroy the phase quartz or it's going to destroy Clank. Rivet then remembered that something that the Morts talked about, a person called the Fixer over at Torrent 4. However, as we arrived to Torrent 4, Pirates has been messing around and the Fixer just broke. Soon after he stopped the pirate invasion and repaired the Fixer, the dude goes berserk. Soon after though, Clank makes a huge save to talk some sense into the Fixer. The Fixer is then able to fix the phase quartz. So now Ratchet and Kit have forged a new Dimensionator, and Rivet and Clank has now gotten an actual phase quartz that actually works. We switch back to Ratchet's point of view, but now all of us are meeting up as Xerxes to wrap up everything. However, as they were ambushed by Dr. Nefarious' minions, a brawl begins, but we do take down Dr. Nefarious though. At that last second, as soon as we took down Dr. Nefarious, Emperor Nefarious has now returned to take the Dimensionator. He gives Rivet a hint that he's going to raid Sargasso, and we also learned that from the hit list, there's one last rebel that the Emperor hasn't gotten yet, a man named Quantum, according to Rivet. So Rivet goes back to Sargasso with Kit, and Ratchet heads to Ardolis with Clank to find Pierre, who is going to help us find Quantum. We switch back to Rivet's point of view along with Kit. We arrived to Sargasso during the Emperor's invasion. We helped the Morts free the Seeker P to take down the ships with Trudy with a couple bombs, and they were able to finally just get out of Sargasso. And boom, we stopped the Emperor's invasion. The Emperor did try to trap both Rivet and Kit into a pocket dimension, but at this point now, they already know how to escape a pocket dimension. We also hear a bit of Rivet's backstory of how she has her right robotic arm, actually, where we are unaware, or Rivet is unaware, that it was Kit that was the warbot back then that caused Rivet's arm to pretty much be gone. After we get out though, we switch back to Ratchet and Clank's point of view to the planet known as Ardolis and catch up to Pierre that was actually about to be sacrificed. We save Pierre and he gives us a location to find Quantum on the planet. Ratchet finds Quantum and has a bit of a scrap with a couple other pirates along the way. Unfortunately, the Emperor does find them all and captures Quantum, but Quantum makes an insane save and Ratchet Clank was able to leave out safely. Some time passes by and Emperor is broadcasting about how he has taken down all the pirates, the resistance is now fading away, but he isn't satisfied though. He's missing something, and then he realizes that to find true victory, he needs to conquer every single dimension out there. Which means he is pretty much heading to Zavali to retrieve the dimensional map. We switch back to Ratchet's point of view, heading over to the archives to make sure the map is there, but unfortunately it isn't. We again go back to Rivet's point of view, sneaking into the Emperor's ship, but then we find Gary. But this is also a good thing though, because Gary and the other guys actually hid the dimensional map, so the Emperor doesn't pretty much have it. We switch back to Ratchet's point of view to find the other resistance and to retrieve the dimensional map. As soon as Clank fixed the anomaly, the Emperor was right there waiting for Clank to just reappear as the anomaly was starting to fade away, and they take the map as well as capture Ratchet and Clank and teleported away from Zavali. Rivet and Kick does catch up though, but just barely. Kit warns her to stay back and just find a way to just get out of here, and then she goes into her Warbot form, which Rivet absolutely does remember because she immediately gets stunned and just on the ground just can't move or anything. Kit is unfortunately captured, so all's well that ends well there. Rivet then leaves Alfonso Valley and then heads to the prison world known as Visceron to save everyone. Rescuing everybody in the process, Rivet and Kid does have a little talk about the past. However, an argument unfolds and the two splits and everybody heads back to Xerxes. Tensions is so high right now to the point where even the two main characters are just starting to let out everything out at each other, but they at least apologize at the end though. The final battle is now here, or the final chapter, where the Emperor is actually heading back to Ratchet's world to start his new conquest. But it doesn't matter though, because we got a team as well and we're just gonna go and stop the Emperor. We switch back to both Ratchet and Clank this entire time, fighting the Emperor's Imperial Power Suit, all his mechs, everybody is just joining forces, even the goons is helping us. It's a fight that is using everything and what they have now to just take down the suit. Once they weakened the suit, Gary and the monks were able to create a portal to the heart of the suit, and Ratchet and Clank was able to take the suit down to destroy the suit once and for good. Now it's time for the final showdown. Everything that's been leading up to since the beginning of the story. Luckily, Kid came back and was able to help us within a nick of time to hold off any extra enemies that were trying to just disturb the battle between Rivet and the Emperor. Rivet then takes down the Emperor, fix all the dimensional rifts, and the hero embark on their next adventure. Okay, now that we got all the story stuff out the way, let's get into the pros and cons of what I have for the story itself. We're gonna start off with the pros. The first obvious one, I mean, I love Rivet the Lombax. I just have to be real with that. I just love this character. If you look on my side channel, Gamer Love Drawing, she's literally my mascot there. I love her character development from just being like this lone resistance member fighter type of character to one that's starting to be more out there and is willing to like have help from like friends and whatnot, and also from like her past with the Warbot messing with her arm, that being Kid to now being friends with her. That's also something I really enjoy, which is I'm gonna get to more of that soon. But not only that, I really enjoyed not just Rivet's voice acting from Jennifer Hale, because she did a fantastic job, but also the voice acting for every other characters in this game as well. I thought it was pretty on point with everything. What I will say though is very interesting how the character design of Rivet, yes, this is like the literal alternative version of Ratchet in her dimension, but it is pretty cool and at the same time kind of odd as well that she looked exactly the same like literally as Ratchet. I kind of wish that they maybe could have done just a little bit more to make her look a little bit more feminine, but that is like the most nitpicking thing there. The next thing I do want to talk about is the characters itself with their own development. Like Rivet, it's like every character, or at least every main character, has like their own story going on. We have Rivet, like I mentioned earlier, that has not only met a new Lombax, but we learn of the fear and anger that she have of robots, and just the resistance is that all she has, and her just learning to just be friendly with everybody else again, starting to like trust robots again, in this case with Clank and Rivet, and just not being like that lone fighter that just does everything by herself majority of the times. We then have Ratchet also meeting a whole new Lombax, even though we just met one a crack in time, but just like another Lombax, because he always wanted to just find like these lost tribe of his, or just the family that he's been trying to find in this whole saga. And now that the Dimensionator is back again, is like this reoccurring thought of like, I wanted to find them again, but at one point I gave up on it, and it's like, do I really want to just re-put that back into my head and try to find them again, to just find that closure that I've just been looking for all this time. We then have Clank building the Dimensionator itself after the entire future saga of just warning Ratchet about the dangers of it, and then just stopping Nefarious of the things going on with the Dimensionator. And then now, after the beginning of the game, to throughout contemplating of what he has done, if what he did was wrong. And then you have Kit with her broken past being this war bot, and then the redemption that she's trying to have, but at the same time contemplating to herself of like, I'm a war bot, can I really change, can I not? All of this is like just great stuff to just see going on throughout the story. And it's not like it's trying to force any of these like own character stories down you. It's kind of like just subtle, but also there as we going through each road, progressing to what tasks we are doing. I really enjoy the stuff like this. I mean, I think it's probably the Avatar Last Airbender that's in me, because whenever I see games that has multiple character developments or story arcs going on, not just from like one character, I really dig that. And for it to be it for really 4 characters, whether you see it really or not, or if it's that out there, I really dig that. The last thing that I will talk about is the game's emotion. When it really shows its emotion, it really sells it. Things like when you have sadness, the regret, but also the epicness, and just like the frightening, the confusion, humor, everything, man. They really expressed everything excellent when it came to the cutscenes. And that's all I have for the pros. We are now gonna go to the cons. The first thing is the story. The story could have been a lot longer, in my opinion. Maybe it's just the fact that the game has like, it feels like there is still more that this game could have added, but it feels like there was just a lot to be missing from both the story aspect as well as just gameplay aspect. It's the same thing with Spider-Man Miles Morales, where I played it and it feels like, I feel like there could have been way more to it, to put a bit more detail into the story and just more stuff to do. And then when I played Marvel Spider-Man, the game that came before Miles Morales, it answered my questions on like, yeah, this game right here has way more stuff. This game just feels like a Miles Morales to me. And it kind of sucks. I feel like there could have been a lot better explanations with different parts on, like, for example, Clank learning how to fix the dimensions again every time he went into these anomalies, because I won't lie, every time when he was saying, I know how to now fix everything, I'm like, how? I really don't understand what is going on. Unless I am missing something, how? Or like with the character's past, I wanted to get things to get a little bit more in specific into Rivet, or just get a little bit more with Ratchet, even though we've seen Ratchet's development with his past the entire time in the future saga. Maybe just a little bit more, I don't know, maybe. Or just more interactions with the characters as well, so that they could just have like just talks, or just whatever, something the case may be, when it came to talking about whatever it is that they've done in the past, and then just trying to figure out what to do in the future, or just venting in general, like we saw with Ratchet and Rivet close to the end of the game. And speaking of story could have been a lot longer, I feel like the world itself could have also been a bit more massive as well. It's a step up in the right direction compared to the 2016 Ratchet Clank game, 100%. Because if we're comparing the level designs that we gotten in, or the open worlds from 2016 game to this one being ripped apart, is obviously a huge step up. But I feel like there just could have been maybe more side missions, maybe another world, or just a little bit more areas to just check out. But I will at least admit this is super nitpicking, like for real. If anything, I'd rather it just be focusing more on the story areas, but as far as like the worlds, that's like really nitpicking what I was just saying. But it would be a little bit nicer though, I will say, because again, there is so much value in this game when you're exploring these worlds that it doesn't feel boring. You have all these side missions that aren't boring. They're pretty interesting and unique to be doing, as well as the story and where you're roaming around. I really feel like if they could have just added a little bit more to the worlds, I don't know, maybe add an extra world or just more to the worlds that we have, that being side mission, or just more things to just be doing, more collectibles or whatever, something. I feel like it could have been maybe a little bit more worthwhile, you could say. The next thing is Clank rebuilding the Dimensionator. This is probably one of the main things that is still making my head scratch to this day. So the entire time in the Future Saga, in the beginning, Clank is warning Ratchet about the dangers of the Dimensionator, and then later on, after Ratchet now understands this stuff, Clank is just trying to keep things at ease. And then here in this game, he rebuilds the Dimensionator. I don't know how I feel about him just rebuilding the Dimensionator for Ratchet to see his family again. Maybe it's because Ratchet now has like a different change of heart of stuff and just doesn't have the same mindset of how he was in Tools of Destruction compared to where he is now. I don't know. It just feels weird that we went through this whole series of Clank trying his best to just like not have anybody touching this thing to like we're going to rebuild and actually use it. And maybe it's me not understanding this properly, but it felt weird. It felt weird to me since the moment that cutscene happened. I don't know. It's just something that I feel like was just out of place. The last thing I'll say about the cons is barely any dynamic between Rivet and Kit specifically when not in cutscenes, unlike Ratchet and Kit. What I mean by that is we get a lot of dialogue with obviously Ratchet and Clank, and we get a lot of chemistry built up between Ratchet and Kit, and obviously with Rivet and Clank. But with Rivet and Kit, it's not really, there's not really there, I see. And maybe to be fair, this is like in the second half of the story where things are just starting to like wrap things up. We see obviously the chemistry of these characters come over time in like the bigger moments closer to the end of the game. But I don't know, I kind of wish that there was just a little bit more to these two together when they are together, which ties back to the earlier points of story could have been a bit more longer to have a bit more chemistry with these two characters. But again, most of this stuff just stems from that first point, so realistically it's just two cons I really have, but still stuff that I just do want to mention. Now before I continue to the gameplay, this isn't really more of like a cons nor a pro, it's kind of in the middle. I see a lot of people talking about how there's not much of Ratchet and Clank, quote unquote, which makes sense because this game's title is Ratchet and Clank. Now that being said, I kind of get it, because is Ratchet and Clank, I mean the duo together, because Ratchet's more we have more time with Ratchet either by himself or with Kit. There isn't much with Ratchet and Clank. Like the only time that those two are out together on their adventures is when they're in the final battle, and also when they're in Ardolis, and also in the beginning of the game as well. Now the other thing is obviously we had a new character. I think a lot of people would have liked it if Rivet wasn't shown as much. Pretty much they wanted way more of Ratchet and Clank, and then with Rivet, I'm not gonna lie, I thought Clank was gonna mainly stay with Ratchet, and this Kit character was gonna mainly be with Rivet, which did happen. I guess it's because things just started wrapping things up pretty quickly later on, that there wasn't much time for more developments or just talking or chemistry, whatever, with those two duos. Would I have liked it more if there was more of the actual Ratchet and Clank? Yeah, sure, but you gotta also remember that I was also excited for the new character, and it was pretty obvious that they are showing off this new character a lot, to where she's gonna have a lot of screen time as any other main character in this game. Yes, you can be upset that on one hand there isn't a lot of quote-unquote Ratchet and Clank, but at the same time, it was kind of expected, honestly. This new character was going to be shown just as much as the other characters in this game. Yes, it would have been a lot better if we could have had the actual duo being together, but it is what it is, for one, and two, it's just a different take with things when you're in a different dimension. And honestly, I'd rather it be in the game like it was when Ratchet was a bit more with Kit and Rivet with Clank, because it allowed for like various different chemistry to just develop from the characters than just from the usual counterparts. That's just me though. Gameplay. So let's start off with the movement and combat. I mean, obviously when you're playing this game on the PlayStation, the movement just feels super smooth. You got transitions going from various pocket dimensions of different world to world, pretty smooth. I mean, you can't say much there. I mean, everything is smooth from traversing with the Phantom Dash, just moving about. I will say, when you're flying with Trudy and Sargasso, they gotta do better with mapping out these controls. That's probably the most annoying when it comes to traversing around worlds, is flying with Trudy and Sargasso. But other than that, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than that. It's literally solid, pretty good. We have 20 weapons in this game. No weapon doesn't feel unbelievably broken, especially when you're about to fight big bosses. And I had to put that note in there because in 2016 Ratchet and Clank, two weapons, the Rhino and I forgot the name of this weapon, but it's like a rocket launcher. It melts the fuck out of the final bosses of that game. And what I mean by it melts the bosses, it melts them in within 1 minute. It is insane how quick those weapons were taking bosses out so fast. It was insane. So it feels great that in this game, yeah, you do have obviously stronger weapons than other, but it doesn't feel unbelievably broken to where you are just melting, and I mean melting, enemies. There are some weapons that you could say is like pretty worthless though, but at the same time, there's also a lot of weapons that used to be like super worthless that are actually pretty good. I think with the amount of add-ons that you can have with these weapons when you're making them stronger in the shop, definitely helps out. For example, with the starter pistol that you use with Ratchet in the beginning of the game, it is still a very useful weapon even to the very end and even in harder difficulties of the game. So for the gadgets, we do have the Omni Glove, which allows us to do a slingshot, the new Rift Tether, which allows us to just transport from portal to portal, the Phantom Dash just like disappear and reappear at the quick couple seconds, kind of like a quick jump, and it's pretty cool for traversing as well. And then you have the wall run as well with it. You then have glide boots, hover boots, grind boots, magnum boots, the Map-O-Matic, and the box breaker. Again, nothing too crazy about gadgets. I mean, we get gadgets all the time, but just figure it's just like good to just know all the stuff that you can get along with weapons, but in this case with gadgets as well. Open world, so we have 9 planets that we can explore. We have Coruscant 5, Sargasso, Xerxes, Savali, Blizzard Prime, Torrent 4, Cordelian, Ardolis, and Zordum Prison. Every world is obviously unique to how they look. One world doesn't look the exact the same as like another one. I mentioned earlier how this game is done a huge step up compared to the 2016 version with how the worlds look and traversing and just like exploring in these worlds compared to the 2016 version, because in that version they are just super linear. Pretty much every world you are going to be in this game is not going to be as linear as you expect. There's like so much space to just go about and just run around and just explore, and I really love that. There is replay value for worlds, it is there, but at the same time it kind of isn't, because like most games with Ratchet and Clank, once you finish a world there isn't really much there to do afterwards, which is something that I feel like the Ratchet & Clank series really needs to work on. I really wish that they they did work on it in this game, but at the same time they did though technically help the replay value for worlds, because sometimes with like actual stories you do have to like go back to previous worlds that you've been to. Like we go to Sargasso twice, and then also there's sometimes where, let's say, you're going to one planet, but then it's like other planets call you back to just have you do some other stuff, like in Sargasso as well. It's rare to see enemies when you complete a world. It's just like super bare bones. I mean, the first world, Coruscant 5, just an open, barren world. You can explore everything that you were doing, that's great, but I kind of wish that there was a little bit of that action still, even when you finish beating these worlds. In-game dialogues, I mean, the amount of in-game dialogues that you have for various characters talking is just absolutely amazing. Again, going back to earlier, I really love the chemistry that we get from various new characters when Ratchet is talking, not just with Clank, but with Kit. I really just enjoy them talking about Ratchet's race, as well as what do I do as far as like if I want to try to find my family again or not. I also enjoy Rivet talking with Clank about just her personality and just things in the past and whatnot. It's really awesome. The only thing though is Rivet and Kit, and I talked about it before, there isn't much when it comes to them talking. They kind of just keep that exclusive for like the big parts in the cutscenes of the game. But aside from that, I mean, the in-game dialogue is just pretty awesome, especially when you go back to some worlds and there's still dialogues that you can just listen to. I mean, go check out these clips on YouTube or just play the game for yourself and you just see the amount of dialogues. I mean, there are times where I just stop in the middle of the game just to hear these characters talk, because it's just really awesome too. I mean, when you hear these chemistries going on with just various characters talking, it's pretty breathtaking to just honestly listen to, if I say so myself. Graphics, I mean, what do you want me to say about this? I mean, I don't have anything else to say other than this game looks beautiful, stellar, fantastic. It runs super smooth on PlayStation 5. I mean, I don't know what else to say on this. I mean, I can't say too much on this. I mean, the only thing that really sucks is that I don't have like a TV that's like 4K or 8K supported with HDR. Like, man, textures for the characters, the environment is like so lifelike. It's not weirdly placed. They all just look fantastic, beautiful. I mean, I don't know what to really say or dissect really on it. I mean, that's all it is. Soundtrack though, every soundtrack has like its own meaning. It doesn't sound like it's been copied from each other. My favorite one is Meet Me at Xerxes. That's probably like my favorite one, more emotional when it comes to all of them. But tell me what your favorite one is, but all the soundtracks are pretty good in this game for sure. Next, I want to just talk about some of the missed opportunity stuff in this game. We're starting to wrap up to the end of this review, so I just wanted to place this here now. Some of the things I really wish that could have been added to this game, and I feel like they could do this in like another Ratchet & Clank game, is the following. Have the option of having either Clank or Kit with you, and don't force it to just have like this one robot character for one character and this one for another. We can't really like pick who we can have one with Ratchet or with Rivet, with like having Clank or Kit. For example, at one point you're going to have Kit with Ratchet, but at some point you're never going to have Kit with you again. It's the same thing with Rivet. You're going to have Clank at one point, but Clank will never be with you again. And sometimes Kit is like there and sometimes not there because of what's going on in the story. So having us have the option of just having these characters to be with us whenever we want to will be really nice to have, honestly, so that we could just again listen to dialogues, or if you just want them to just be with us. Yeah, as far as like extra stuff like online and local co-op and online multiplayer games go, I can't see why they can't do it. I mean, online local co-op, assuming that you have more than one Lombax with you, so basically more just like Ratchet and Rivet together. Basically, you got online and local multiplayers that can do like deathmatch, mini party games, some type of capture the flag, King of the Hill racing games, more unique ones that the Ratchet & Clank series has, or just new ones that the series has never done before. Anything really. And then and as far as like replay value, again with the worlds, just things for have us like a reason to continuously keep going back to those worlds to just do stuff or whatever. I really hope that these things does come to fruition when the next if we get another Ratchet & Clank game in the future. The PC release for Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart just recently came out, and I also did a weekly recap video where I was talking about the minimum requirements needed to run the game on your PC. One of the ones that caught my attention was the storage needed, and you can actually run the game with a hard disk drive, which I was super surprised about, because with them talking about SSD so much back then before the game's release, I thought it would be like a SSD all throughout the board. But no, you can actually run the game with a hard disk drive if you still had one. And if you were to look up PC comparisons now for different specs on the PC variation, you can see people running it with like good CPUs, GPUs, RAM, and everything, but testing different types of HDDs and SSDs. And I can't lie, it's pretty impressive seeing what I am seeing with. Yeah, there is like some of the longest load times ever. Things are not able to process as fast as what they were saying as well, so they weren't lying about that. But now we have like whole debate sparking about now where it's like, were these developers lying or not, of like this game needed to be run on the PS5 with the power of the SSD. My whole thing with is, if this game was to run on the PS4, it wouldn't be smooth. It would look good, gameplay would be good. I don't think it would have been as smooth, but without question, transitioning with worlds and other things would not have been this smooth compared to if what it is now on the PS5. And we see it with here on the PC as well. It's like, yeah, it can run it theoretically, but it's not running it the way that we intended it to. So just keep that in mind with the specs of the PC that you have when you're going to play this game, because yeah, you can run the game, but are you going to be running it the way that it was originally intended it to? Because if you were to ask me, I'm not going to honestly feel like playing the game that's going to have some of the longest load times for loading up different sections of the world, when that's kind of one of the main gimmicks of this game. So there you have it there. Do check out some of these PC comparisons of like different specs of the PC. It's really interesting to check out though. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart review for mainly the PS5, but also talking a little bit about the PC port. Overall, this was just a fantastic game to just have. It's a great game to just have if you have some time to just chill, or you just want to have a little bit of some action, but you can also still have that heavy challenge at the highest difficulty. I just really adore and enjoy this game. The characters rivet, especially the amount of character interactions throughout the game. There's so many stuff to just look forward to this game. It is a top tier PS5 exclusive game. I highly recommend it, and it's obviously one of my favorite Ratchet & Clank games. Yes, I know it's only been 3. This is my 3rd Ratchet & Clank game I played, but still, I don't care. Anyway, as far as like recommendations to this game, if you're someone that loves single player campaign games, open world games, as well as taking your time to playing them, lighthearted yet also serious, or if you also like the Marvel Spider-Man series or any games that's been from Insomniac Games, I highly recommend you try out this game and just play it. As far as what systems, again, this game is meant to be played on the PS5. If you do want to do it on PC, but you want to have it like the same way as if it was on the PS5, you're gonna need to have like some of the more modern specs and specs or hardware for your PC. And I'm talking about everywhere, when it going from your SSD to the RAM to the CPU, GPU, pretty much everything. If you do still have a PC and you don't have all that stuff, you'll be running it, but just not the way like it was like originally intended to. That just being like way faster load times and just other processing and whatnot. Yeah, now like I said earlier, I really enjoyed this game, but man, I am really dying for a sequel for this game, especially for how the ending took place. But yeah, at the same time, who knows when we're going to get a new Ratchet & Clank game, because as of now, we got Marvel Spider-Man 2 that's going to be releasing in a couple months, which I'm super excited for, and then in 2 more years, in 2025, we'll be having a game called Marvel's Wolverine coming out. So who knows? this may be the only game for the PS5 of the Ratchet & Clank series that we'll get for this system, just like how 2016 Ratchet & Clank was the only Ratchet & Clank game we've gotten for the PS4. And that will honestly suck. I mean, quality over quantity, but at the same time, I just kind of wish that maybe they could just do a little bit more with the game. But at the same time, you got a lot of IPs that are, or other franchises or game series that are just doing way better, that you gotta a little bit put more effort into them. I really do hope that maybe one day we can start getting more constant games for one set of system, instead of just having like that one game for one system, because if it really comes down to that, it is gonna suck, honestly. We'll see what happens in the future. I mean, only time will tell. But anyway, that is it for this review. Finally, I got this review out. As far as like the next review that's going to be going on, I do plan on focusing more on the Marvel Spider-Man stuff. As y'all are aware, Marvel Spider-Man 2 is coming out in a couple months, but I do want to get my reviews out for both Marvel Spider-Man Remastered, the DLCs, campaigns for all of that, as well as Miles Morales. Once that out the way, I got something special planned after that, but until then, I'm signing off. Y'all have a good one. Y'all take care. Peace.